Hello everybody, Jake your resident content cowboy here, Yeehaw, and this is an updated tier list for every mini in Warcraft Rumble with the new Cenarion families added. I can't believe I cannot find a tier list for this game with the new update. I'm going to go through every single leader, every single mini. I'm going to get some of this right. I'm going to get some of it wrong. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Big shout out to Warcraft Rumble for sponsoring this video and other videos on the channel. Let's take a look at our tier list. We have our S tier. These are going to be units and leaders that I feel like are particularly broken. We have our A tier. These are going to be good, solid choices that work pretty well in a lot of situations. We have our B tier. Still got the B tier. Annoying. These are going to be mostly okay choices. C tier, a little underwhelming. And then D tier, well, I mean, I really wouldn't recommend anything in the D tier. Obviously, ranking the leaders, I think, is the first thing that we should do right here. This is going to be a general tier list, so it's not based only on PvP, it's not based only on PvE, it's just kind of generally, I think, where you will find mileage with these heroes. I'm sure the top-ranked PvP players would have some different opinions, and someone who's grinded every aspect of PvE would be like, actually, this one's a little bit better, but this, again, is my take for where they land on our tier list. Let's start. Baron. Baron's S tier for me. It's either S or A. It couldn't really be much lower. It's easy to put this on the battlefield at low cost. It also has one of the best talents in the game, just constantly spawning skeletons, especially, that's like its leader ability, and then its talent is to make them ranged and slow, and it's just crazy. I think he's very incredible. Cairn, I really love Cairn. So I think the extra HP is awesome. It's one of my favorite decks to play. So maybe I'm being a little partial right here to this leader, but I really like it, and I think it's A tier. Blood Mage is fun, and I don't love it. I feel like he's a little too weak sometimes. I kind of love playing it with Arcane Blast, and just super cheesy, like getting him as high a level as I possibly can. I know it has a cap, but it's fun to do. I don't think it's amazing. I think it's pretty good. A PvP expert could say I'm totally wrong. I'll do our new units last here. Char Olga, hate you. Just can't stand this leader. I don't like the RNG of it, the randomness. I know you build your deck in a way you're expecting certain numbers to come out. I just don't like it. And for that reason, I'm putting it low on my tier list. I find the General Dracosath to be pretty decent. It's like one of my least favorite ones, but I actually think it's pretty solid. I'd say it's either B or A. Like somewhere in this realm, I think is pretty fair. I think people who are really into Dracosath would say A. I think people who are like, yeah, it's kind of boring would say B. I know boring isn't really the best reason for something, but I gotta be honest, I just don't have a good time playing it. It's fine. You can make some cool decks. I'm probably being too harsh, but I'm gonna put it B. Emperor Thermaremisian, I'm going to put it B as well. I think its ability is cool, and you make some fun decks with it, but I feel like it's also kind of limited in that aspect. Like, there are certain things you just can't play with it, sort of, which is a little unfortunate. And then there are a lot of things that are really cool with it. So I think it's a pretty solid one. Gromash, I'm going to give A. I think Gromash is quite good. The ability to make units, like, bloodthirsty and crazy is pretty powerful. Hogger, I think, probably drops off considerably. I think for newer players, it's probably A, and for most players, it's probably B. Hogger's decks, they're just kind of like cycle decks where you're getting a lot of units out there so you can get Hogger back on the battlefield. Pretty predictable, but also decently fun. Jaina. Now, I've heard Jaina PvP is actually kind of nuts right now. I don't love Jaina I don't love either of the spellcasters really as leaders. I think they're all right, but they just don't really excite me in their play style. I think she's probably better than I'm rating her, but I just don't really enjoy playing I don't enjoy playing spell-focused decks really. I usually play like mini-focused decks. Mayev Shadow Song I think is really good. It's probably the hardest deck to play. Maybe some of the new ones are pretty hard too. It's probably the hardest deck to play, but I think it's really good, really strong. The ability to deploy this unit super cheap, and then you kind of have like the only issue I have with this is kind of similar to my issue with Emperor Thermasian or whatever, is that you kind of are funneled into one style of deck, which I think can be a little underwhelming. Murkai I can't put below A. I love Murkai. There are certain things you can't play Murkai into. They just get absolutely slaughtered. I love Murkai. I'm not moving it out of A tier. I think it's so fun. At times, so good. March of the Murlocs on Murkai just has... You have so much uptime on the Murlocs that you're casting out. And when played correctly, it can just overwhelm people. It's very, very fun. But also kind of cheesy and easy to counter. Rend, I feel like, is probably S tier. I don't play a ton of Rend. I think Rend is just, it feels like Rend is the like cool one. It's supposed like Rend and Baron, I think they know are very cool and people will like them, and they have made them to be very cool and have people like them because they're really, really good and cool and everyone likes them. I think he's probably S tier. Sneed is B or A. I don't really have these like rated inside the tiers themselves, right? I'm just kind of putting them into their categories. I think Sneed is good. There was a long time ago when it was like Need for Sneed or whatever got nerfed. This was very long ago. I think it was near game launch or like right before game launch or something, where I thought Sneed was a little bit better. I think it's cool, specific, weird, fun, but also kind of okay. Sylvanas I don't like. I've heard people do like Sylvanas. I do not like Sylvanas. I think she's boring, feels kind of underpowered, feels easy to counter, extremely expensive. I don't know. I don't like Sylvanas, Windrunner. Yeah. Tyrion for me is S. Now this is a kind of a noob choice. I'm not going to lie, but it's so crazy useful, especially with that talent that lets you just live when you should have been KO'd for another 5 seconds, continuing to heal allies. It's a crazy good tank with heal that lives too long. It's just really, really good. And it sets up some really cool combinations with some units. Now, we have our 2 new leaders. I think I'm a little more excited about the leaders than... Like, to be fair, I think, like, this is all new. So I think I'm a little more jazzed maybe about them. More jazzed. I think I'm a little more jazzed about them than maybe some people would be. I'm going to put Cenarion in A. I think the heal is good. I also think the root is really good, and he's a 5-drop. I think he's pretty solid. Onu, on the other hand, I find him to be a little underwhelming for the cost. I think I'm going to put him B, knowing full well that there will be comments saying that this guy's actually crazy overpowered because of you being able to deploy units near him. I've felt like that should be the case when I'm using Onu, but oftentimes when I use it, I just feel like he's extremely high cost, pretty dang squishy, you know, especially because he's vulnerable. Of course, there are ways to, you know, help mitigate that, but I've just not been super impressed by Onu. Maybe I need to spend more time with it. I honestly could see it in the C tier, but I would love to hear from you in the comments. That is my take on the leaders. Now let's move on to the rest of the minis in the game. Where do we want to start? We could just kind of go in order, or we could bounce around to kind of some different tiers and see where we... Let's bounce around to some different tiers. Let me grab an S tier one. Who's pretty S tier, I think, in this game? There are some solid ones I'm looking at. Who is S? It's hard for me not to put Huntress in S. Dark Spear Troll. Dark Spear Troll is probably one of my favorite units in the entire game, especially with the big bad voodoo talent. I think it's just broken, crazy range, insane damage. Will kind of like solo multiple enemies and then heal itself back up. I think it's honestly too good. Yeah, they probably should nerf it, but I've noticed they don't love to buff or nerf lots of things in this game. They just kind of release it and they're like, have some fun, you jerks. Let's see, what are we doing with our A tier right here? Who's a good A tier one? You know what? I'm gonna put our new Ancient of War in the A tier. I actually think the ability to deploy this unit at any cost is extremely powerful, and then the talent that lets you have increased attack speed when you deploy 4 and under, I think is really strong. It's just a tanky little unit that you can deploy and redirect enemies anytime. It's not broken, but I think it's really, really good. As we look towards our B tier here, these are things that are pretty good, but also you're like, okay. You know, I could put another new unit here. I'm going to put Moonkin in the B tier. I don't think the talents for Moonkin are particularly interesting. I do like the area damage it does. It's kind of like, oscillates between area damage and then single target, area damage, single target. I kind of like it. Feels a little too squishy at times. It costs like probably right around what it should. I think it's solid, but not anything to like really freak out about. C tier. Something that I kind of think is underwhelming, but not completely terrible, would be... There are a few of these that I think we could definitely put into the C tier. It's like not... Maybe Core Hounds? Core Hounds could even be lower sometimes. Like, I don't know. They're just so expensive. I don't know if the revive is still bugged. Sometimes I feel like it is kind of bugged and they're just not really reviving the way I want them to. I also could just have this in my head. Oftentimes, I do think really high cost units are tough because you have to think about like, well, like, I think a lot about what am I trading for, like, what am I trading gold wise? For instance, if I can put down Blizzard and you have literally 20 costs of units walking towards me and one Blizzard takes them all out, like I just got like a 16 gold swing right in my direction. And when you have a 6 cost unit, I feel like it really has to blow me away a bit for me to think it's like a super solid unit. I don't think they are. And now D tier, just something that you really don't find much use in. I'm going to put Living Bomb. I think Living Bomb is just bad. I think Blizzard is a better option. I think Starfall is a better, or what do they call it? It's not called Starfall. It's called Earth and Moon or something like that. This spell right here. This spell I think is better. So I don't know. I just think it's so expensive for what it does. They could probably drop it to a 5 cost and you would still see people not pick it up as often. Yes, it could be devastating. Yes, you could take out some waves with it, but I think like Blizzard's 4 drop and it's just better. Let's head back up to the top. Let's just bounce around. I'm just going to grab some. Murloc Tidehunters are A for me, maybe even close to S. I think they're really great. They're 2-drop. Safety Bubble I think is awesome. I love low-cost units that can provide a lot of value. I think they're very, very solid. Abomination has kind of been growing on me. It's probably B tier, but I might even move it to A. I feel like it's like one of the 6 drops that I actually really like. I might be putting this too high, but... I've been enjoying Abomination more and more throughout my play, especially once I got kind of the noxious ability for it, that talent that has poison around it. I like it. This might be 1 tier too high, but I do like it. Dark Iron Miner, I'm going to put A tier. Where'd he go? I just tried to put, oh, he put on D, sorry. I'm going to put him in A tier. I think it's mostly PvP, but there are also PvE maps that's just really good. Just denying your opponent's gold is one of the most important things in the game, in my opinion. So I think it's really, really great. And it just puts you ahead on economy. It at least gives you the ability to be like, hey, yes, I'm spending gold, but you didn't get gold. And I think that's very important. I'm going to put Huntress S. I think Huntress is crazy good. It can get countered. It's a 5-drop, but it's also... great. It bounces its attacks to multiple enemies. It has a talent that lets it become invisible. It has a talent that lets its attacks bounce to more enemies. It has a talent that lets its first hit deal extra damage. Like, I don't know. I think Huntress is just like crazy good. Defias Bandits, I think, are probably S. It's a 1-drop stealth that stuns and also can unlock chests in a crazy way. So yeah, I would say they're probably S tier. Chicken, I think, is like D or C. Maybe there are sometimes you could say it's C. I might put it C and then change my mind. Arcane Blast, I know people don't love. I actually like Arcane Blast a lot. I think B is as high as I can place it. The problem is there are better spells, right? So I think like Blizzard's better. I think the lightning spell is better, Chain Lightning or whatever. And it's only a 2-drop. The thing I love about Arcane Blast is like I can get something out of Cloak very cheap. And I use the one where the range keeps getting bigger. I think my love of Arcane Blast is just because I think it's fun to use. It's probably a lower tier spell. Yeah, Chain Lightning is probably A. I'd say Blizzard is like high A or S. It's really good. It's like really, really good. It's borderline S for me. I might even move it up. I think it's really, really great. It's a 4 cost, and you can eliminate so much for 4. Let's see. Bat Rider I like. Put Bat Rider A. I think it's pretty solid. I actually used to not really enjoy it, but it's a low-cost unit The talent that increases the size of its pool, I think, is really good. And it's air, right? So it's hard for people to hit. Banshee, I don't love. I'm going to put Banshee B. I think people will say it's better, but I feel like it's just so easy to counter something like this. Cheat Death. Cheat Death is dumb, but fun. So I'm going to put it C, knowing that it should probably be D. But it's really fun, and you can do some silly stuff with it. I have the talent that has all your skeletons resurrect at base after you use it. It's just like, it's just cheesy fun and dumb. So I can't put it any lower, even though it's probably not that good. Deep Breath is S. It seems like probably the best spell in the game. It's really strong, not that expensive. The talent that lets it hit twice, of course, is the way to go. Really, really good. I like Earth Elemental a lot. Earth Elemental's either A or S. It's tanky and it's unbound. And you like things that are unbound and tanky, you can really like, you can set your enemies up in some really bad positions because of it. And it might even deserve to be higher, honestly. I think it's really, really good. Where do we want to go next? Footmen. They're fine. They're like B tier, maybe even C tier. They're fine. They have a couple cool decks, especially with like Tyrion. I could see some real use with Cenarion and stuff too, right? But in general, I think they're fine. Let's see. I think Gargoyle's probably S. It's just insanely specific times for it to be S, but when it is and you can get it towards an enemy base or something like that, it's kind of broken and it takes a lot to take it down. So I do think for the playmaking potential, it's probably S tier. Let's see. Ghoul, I think, is A. I think Ghoul's really good, especially with Cannibalize where you get armor. I think that's really strong. Blackrock Pyromancer is A for me as well. Love Blackrock Pyromancer. I think it's incredibly good. Big time damage, huge splash damage, lots of range, very strong. Harpies are S? Probably PvE S and PvP A. They're really strong, really good, very fast, counters lots of things. I think Harpies are really great. Goblin Sappers are super specific. They're like right there with Cheat Death for me. They're probably better than Cheat Death, but they're just super specific. It's super cheesy. It's like one of the cheesiest builds. Griffin Rider is an S tier for me. I think it's so good. A 2-drop at crazy range. I have like the increased range talent for it. 2-drop, flying, crazy range. Yes, very, very good. Let's see. Execute's probably A. I don't use this enough, but it's insanely powerful. I feel like Execute is a really, really good spell. I am going to put Polymorph higher than most. I have Golden Fleece talent on Polymorph, and I think in some ways this is like Blizzard, but better because it gets a ton of units, and you also get a refund when you use it. So there are times where using Blizzard feels weird, but for some reason to me, using Polymorph doesn't. I know I'm going to get a bit of a refund. I can easily KO what's on the other side and have my units keep pushing. So I really like Polymorph, but again, I really like mini focused decks as opposed to spell focused decks. Chimera I think is pretty good. I'm going to put it B. I think it's pretty good, maybe even better. It might even be closer to A. I think it's actually pretty strong. I think the Mother Drake is pretty good. In certain decks, these are better, obviously. I think she's pretty good with Ren Blackhand deck. I think the Fairy Dragon is like... Guys, I can't tell if Fairy Dragon is good or just kind of fun. It attacks from flying, which is huge. It's pretty good range. It gives an ally resist. The talent I have is like, it gives an ally resist. I think it's pretty good. I'm going to put it B, but that might be a little high. That might just be some recency bias on my part. What else are we looking at here? Necromancer, I think, is B. Pretty good, maybe even close to A. I think it's a pretty solid unit, not expensive, and with the talent that lets your skeletons become mages, I think it's actually pretty dang good. Stonehoof Tauren is one of my favorite units in the game. I don't think I can put it higher than A tier, but Stonehoof Tauren is so good. I love Stonehoof Tauren. I think it's amazing. The dash, like stunning what it runs into. The ability to like move into multiple units is really good too. I think it's just such a great unit. I love it in my Cairn deck. Let's see. Molten Giant I don't like. I'm going to put it in the D tier. I'm sorry. I know there are Molten Giant fans out there that are going to disagree with me. It's totally fine. You could be right. It's a really high cost unit. And I don't love it. To be fair, me saying that and then putting A-Bomb in the A tier is probably quite hypocritical. And I understand that, and I don't know what to tell you. I don't like Molten Giant. Witch Doctor, I think, is S. With the Spirit Ward, I believe it's called. It's a cheap unit, and it gives shields to everybody around on a KO. I think it's kind of broken. Worgen is fine. Worgen's like B, and that might be a little too generous for Worgen, honestly. It's like, hang out in the B tier, you jerk. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's like you deploy it. It's got a good execute on a lot of units. Cool. It's unbound, which is like, it can't be terrible. Let's see. Or I guess maybe there could be an unbound unit that's terrible. I haven't looked. These are Whelp Eggs, S tier. Whelp Eggs are broken, especially with Flame Burst. It's like crazy broken. Holy Nova is probably C. I'm going to put it B because I've actually been using it a little bit more and I kind of like it. I think it's cheesy, but I'm going to put it in the B tier. Earth and Moon, I think Earth and Moon's pretty good. Giving like the 6 cost option for Starfall with the extended range on it, I think is really strong. It's like really powerful. You can kind of cheese down like lots of towers and stuff like that with it, especially if you're using, you know, a leader that gives you increased spell level, or you're using like Moonkin with the ability for increased spell. I'm probably rating this too high. But I also like that it could be a 3-drop that's pretty decent, and it combos a little bit with Cenarius's talent to turn things into treants, which I think is pretty cool. Our little gnomish pilot here, I think, is S tier. Unbound, it's like deploys like a spell, and then it is a unit. I think it's really good. Smoke Bomb is cheesy. I think it's D or C at best. Like, see it back. Like, there are builds for it. Like, basically, Sapper's Smoke Bomb. Like, there are builds for this, but I think it's just super cheesy. I'm only putting it C because I think people are going to say it's actually really good. And I'm trying to appease you, but I don't think it's that good. I think it's just cheesy, and sometimes it's fun to do cheesy things. Let's see. Who's next? Plague Farmer is kind of meh. I like Plague Farmer. I think it's fun. I have the increased range on it, which I think is cool, but I feel like I'm always a little underwhelmed by like kind of what this unit is doing. Let's see right here. Who is next? We've got Mountaineer, terrible, one of the worst units in the game. So expensive. Yeah, you like 2 units drop out of it, but my God, I think this thing is just so bad. Harvest Golem, I think, is really underwhelming. I always want Harvest Golem to be better, and I'm like, why is this not a good tank? And I don't feel like it is. Let's see. Quillbore. Quillbore is S tier for me. One of the best units in the game. A cheap, unbound unit that's pretty tanky. Crazy. Skeletons, I think, are pretty good. I'd probably put them B. The problem is they're just not as tanky. Like, compared to Quillbore, they're like in different universes. Warsong Grunts, I do not care for. I don't think they're very good. Raider, I think, is pretty underwhelming. I've had the wrong talent for it for a while. I've had that annoying one where it only does siege damage. I got a new one where it sunders armor, and I think that's better. I just don't think it's that great of a unit. I'm guessing this is Skeleton Party, right? I think Skeleton Party's pretty good. I'm gonna put it B. I like a lot of the skeleton stuff, but it's mainly just because I love my cheat death skeleton build. Raptors are good. They're all right. They're cheap, and you can make some plays happen. Spiderlings are bad. They're just useless, I think. Vultures are pretty bad. Yes, it's a 1-drop that's in the air, and it's still bad. Like, okay, you're a 1-drop in the air. There are so many air 2-drops that are way better. I just think they're kind of dumb. Bog Beast, I think, is actually pretty good. It's pretty tanky. Its ability to give it armored over 50% health, its talent, I think is pretty solid. I'm going to put Bog Beast A. It's a 3-drop, and it feels really tanky. I like it. I think it's pretty good. Fire Elemental, I'd say is B. You know what? This might be closer to A. I've been a little down on this unit, but I do think it's pretty solid when you know you're running into things with a lot of elemental damage. You got the Fire Hammer. It's fine. I don't love it. Flame Waker. I don't like Flame Waker. I think C is as high as I can put it. I don't like this unit. I just don't think it does enough. Null Brute. Yeah. It's like the only reason I say it's B is because it's super cheap. and you kind of run it in a cycle deck. It's okay. I don't think it's amazing. We've got our Meat Wagon, which I would put into the A tier, maybe even higher. There are certain maps in PvE and even in PvP, you can do some dumb stuff with it. Like, because it can outrange things, you can kind of cheese down a lot of things. Frostwolf Shaman, I think, is great. It's A tier, maybe even S. I love Frostwolf Shaman. Prowler, I really like too. I really like Prowler. I think it's really strong for the cost. Very, very strong. Has nice engage. The ability to make it stealth, I think, is incredible. And then Ogre Mage, I'm really unimpressed with Ogre Mage. I'm going to put it into our C tier. So there you go. That is every unit in Warcraft Rumble ranked. As always, feel free to agree, disagree. I would love to hear from you in the comments. I couldn't believe I couldn't find a Warcraft Rumble tier list. So here we go. The Cenarion update for Warcraft Rumble. The first tier list I could find is the one I had to make. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Shout out to Blizzard for sponsoring this and many other videos on the channel. Appreciate you all. Love you. See you next time. Buff Vultures.